Okay, so in the last video, we saw that the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So we're going to take a look here and we are going to write our congruency statements. So we're going to start with the angles. All right, so according to this, if we look at this, J corresponds to P. So this tells me that if these two triangles are congruent, then angle J is congruent to angle P. K corresponds to Q, so angle K is congruent to angle Q. And then L and R correspond to one another, so angle L is congruent to angle R. Right? So those are the congruency statements. So what we can do here to get a better visual is I'm going to draw two triangles, and then we can see how our sides are going to be congruent. All right, so we said that J, K, L, and then over here we have triangle P, Q, R, right? And J is congruent to P, K is congruent to Q, and then L is congruent to R. And so once we have those, then we can find our corresponding segments, okay? So if we look at this, this tells me that this segment here, JK, is congruent to this segment PQ. And we can kind of see that here. JK and PQ are in the same spot. So segment JK is congruent to segment PQ, right? Then we have KL is going to be congruent to QR. So segment KL is congruent to segment QR. And then lastly, we have JL is going to be congruent to PR. So segment JL is congruent to segment PR. All right. Then we can write another congruency statement. Basically, we can take this and we can rewrite this order. So JKL is congruent to PQR. But if I were to change that order, say I started at K, then it would be triangle KLJ, and then we would have to make sure that it corresponds. So this would be triangle, and we see that K corresponds to Q, L to R, and then J to P. So this would also be a true congruency statement. All right, so we're going to try it on the other side, but this time we're going to try without drawing it, see if we can just use the statement. So if we look at this, we start with the angles. W and E are in the same position, so they must be congruent. X and F are in the same position, so they are congruent. And then we have Y and G, so angle Y is congruent to angle G. Okay, and so then we can also do that with the sides. So we're going to take a look first. We see W and X is going to make a segment. So WX is going to be congruent to, and then the first two on this side are EF. So that would make segment EF. All right. Then we take the middle and the last. So XY. So XY is going to be congruent to, again, the middle and the last, which is going to be FG. And then lastly, we take the first and the last if we want to get that last segment. So it's going to be WY. So WY is going to be congruent to EG. And we can now write a different congruency statement. So I could say that triangle, if I wanted to start in a different position, say I say triangle YWX. So I start with the last one and then I go backwards. That will be congruent to Y goes with G, W goes with E, and X goes with F. So then those two triangles would be congruent.